We've got this storm coming out of the southwest that's going to be creating some hazardous travel conditions Sunday night into Monday morning. And falling in behind that will be the threat of some gusty west winds. Then Tuesday into Wednesday, we got a threat of more snow across the region. Hi, I'm meteorologist Brad Warner for Region Weather Live, YouTube source for weather across the Dakotas and Minnesota. And yes, we're going to have a bit of a messy commute Monday morning up in the northeast. And there's already winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings out for our area due to the expected freezing rain, freezing drizzle, sleet, and snow. Start off the actual forecast here right around midnight, Sunday night into very early Monday morning. You can see this rain begins to surge northward into our area as this low pressure moves out of the south, running into some colder air a little bit further to the north. And so that's going to bring the potential of freezing rain and freezing drizzle starting around midnight, kind of in that central portion of the state. And even though this particular model is showing temperatures just below freezing going through the Twin Cities metro area, I do think there will be enough warm air, clouds, winds through the overnight hours to probably push this line just a little bit further north of the Twin Cities through the overnight hours. And so I think more of this in through here is probably going to fall as rain as opposed to the freezing rain. Now by 3 a.m., more of that warm air kind of moves to the north and east. And actually, as we take a look at this, the rain begins to move into the south and east. And probably we're going to hear at least a few rumbles of thunder through the very early morning hours of Monday morning, as some of those storms that are going to be developing in the far south have the potential to run through the southeastern portion of the state. Now, by this point in the morning, that freezing rain and freezing drizzle and sleet begin to move just a little bit further north. And even though you don't really see it pick up in this particular map, I do think there's probably the potential, at least, for seeing some freezing drizzle in through this region, right in through here. So as I said, even though you're really not seeing it show up on this particular model, there will be enough low-level moisture moving into this region to cause that freezing drizzle to take place. And by 6 a.m., just in time for that morning commute through that Hinckley, Mora, maybe Little Falls, up to Aiken, McGregor, Moose Lake, Cloquet, and reaching up to Duluth, just in time to make those roads really nice and slippery as that freezing rain takes hold just a little bit more and becomes just a little more intense, particularly kind of in that Pine City, Mora, Hinckley area. Of course, further to the south, that rain continues with the possibility at least still of maybe a few rumbles of thunder down in the far southeast. And I think still by 6 a.m. we have the potential at least of seeing at least some freezing drizzle up in the northern portions of Minnesota. Now, starting from 9 a.m. on Monday, things begin to get a little tricky. I think there's still going to be the possibility of some freezing rain and sleet kind of in that northeastern portion of Minnesota still. Maybe perhaps kind of stretching back into that St. Cloud area perhaps. And then also having that freezing rain and or freezing drizzle up in the north country. But the problem that occurs after this point is there's more cold air that works in as well as more upper level moisture, which helps the snow to fall from the upper layers down to the ground. And so it's just a matter of at what point will this all begin to turn over to snow so that we can get rid of that nasty freezing rain. You can see here the variance between the models of the exact location of where some of that freezing rain and snow will be. And in fact, it looks like most of them are still saying that freezing rain and sleet will still be around by this point. But as we get to that noon hour is when the models begin to differ as to just how much sleet, freezing rain, and or snow there will be by that noon time frame. So there may still be the possibility by that noon hour through that Two Harbors, Duluth, perhaps even up to Eveleth in Hibbing as well. Maybe just down far enough to make it down to Hinckley and Pine City. There might still be the possibility of this freezing rain. However, don't be surprised if this turns over just a little bit quicker over to snow by this point either. Either way, no matter how you slice it, up there in the northeast, roads are just going to be a mess. Either it's going to be freezing rain or snow, so who really cares by that point? Now, one thing that does look pretty certain is that as we get to that 3 p.m. time frame on Monday, most of that will pretty much be turned over to snow. Now, the problem becomes, particularly for those of you in the far northeastern portions of the state, kind of through that St. Louis and particularly Lake and Cook counties as you're kind of running up against that orographic lifting here just north of Lake Superior. Some of that snow could become heavy at times, reducing visibilities. And now also, of course, you're putting that snow on top of some areas that have already received that freezing rain. Now, further south by 3 p.m., that precipitation pretty much has moved out of the area. And by 6, again, we're just left with some light to possibly some moderate snows up here across the northeast. Pretty much from 9 p.m. and beyond, the snow begins to move out. And as you can see here, as we get to midnight, Monday night, early Tuesday morning, pretty much that snow is out of the region. And taking a look at what the National Weather Service is predicting for snowfall, and you can see kind of around that 3 to 4 inch mark here in Duluth. But for those of you up along the North Shore, we're kind of looking in between that 4 to 6 range, and that's why they have those winter storm warnings out for the north here. And taking a look at the potential of freezing rain amounts, look at how much north of Minneapolis, between that Duluth and Minneapolis area, and in particular, kind of from St. Cloud to that Pine City and Hinckley, where you can see anywhere from 1/10 of an inch to possibly up to 1/4 inch of freezing rain. So for those of you traveling along I-94 through the St. Cloud area and I-35 between Minneapolis and Duluth, watch out for those very slippery conditions as you go through Monday morning. It's going to be a mess up and through east central portions of Minnesota. And then also note the areas where I said the possibility at least of some freezing drizzle kind of extends up and through here as well. So just know, really anywhere in through here, the roads could become slippery. Just even with a little bit of freezing drizzle, those roads are going to slicken up through the morning hours Monday. Now, one other thing to be concerned about as we go through the day on Monday is going to be the strong westerly winds coming here from west to east, kind of driving in a little bit warmer but drier air across the Dakotas. Generally, I think we're going to be looking at gusts between the 30 to 35 range, but there's potential of it getting as high as 40 miles per hour through the day on Monday, which means it could cause some drifting and perhaps even some blowing snow across western and central portions of North Dakota, perhaps even reaching into that James River Valley area and up to Devil's Lake. And so even though you're looking at temperatures possibly getting above freezing through this region, I think the winds could still be stiff enough to cause some drifting snow and slicken up some of those roadways. Now, Tuesday into Wednesday, we have this quick, compact little storm system that wants to run through our area, but it has the potential of laying down a fair amount of snow and causing some problems. But unfortunately, because it is so quick and so narrow, the models are really having a hard time figuring out exactly where to track this system. And just to show you what I mean, here is Tuesday night midnight or Wednesday morning midnight, depending on how you want to look at it. But here's the variability between where the models paint the biggest snowfall amounts around that midnight time frame. And it can vary quite a bit, and that's going to make a big difference just because as you take a look at some of these models, they have a fair amount. Some areas could be heavy at times. And so a narrow band of heavy snow is going to make it very difficult as to determine how to forecast for this thing. And in fact, when you take a look at the forecasted snowfall accumulations, look at the differences between the tracks and where exactly it falls. I mean, look at this narrow band of snow that could fall. Now, if that takes a little bit different track, a little bit further south, obviously that makes a huge difference as some of these other models are indicating. So for now, I'm just going to pick the model that I think best represents what's probably going to happen, at least just to give you a little bit of a feeling for the timing of this storm. Tuesday, right around that noon time frame, you can see that snow beginning to move into the western portions of the Dakotas. And by 6 p.m. on Wednesday, it moves into the east and into southwestern portions of Minnesota as well. Now, also note some of this down in the southeast, some of this in the southeastern portion of the snow could have some rain or rain snow mixed in with it as well. But as I said before, the main concern is going to be the potential, at least, of seeing some moderate to even some heavy bands of snow quickly move from west to east out of the storm system, where visibilities could drop down to a half mile quickly at times. Now, by midnight Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning, that snow now is into eastern portions of Minnesota, and once again, you can see where that rain could mix in with it as well, down in the far southeastern portion of this storm. Further north, we've got that snow somewhere through the Dakotas and into northern portions of Minnesota. And by 6 a.m. Wednesday morning, that snow begins to cut off here further off in the west, with the snow remaining here across Minnesota and into eastern portions of the Dakotas. And by noon, we're just left with some snow off in the east, and perhaps picking up a bit of a tight gradient here out of the north to where some of this could start blowing around by the afternoon hours on Wednesday. And it looks like maybe some of those gusty winds kind of settling into southern portions of Minnesota by 6 p.m. Wednesday evening. But pretty much by that point, most of the snow is out of there. We've got just some light leftover stuff, and then some cold high pressure begins to settle in. So I'll have to take a closer look at this tomorrow and see exactly how this storm is lining up. So make sure you hit the subscribe button down below, hit the thumbs up button, hit the bell button, hit all those buttons down below so that you know next time I've uploaded a video just like this, and we can keep on top of this next little system that comes through. Now, in the meantime, for those of you, particularly in through that central and northeastern portions of Minnesota going into Monday morning, roads are going to be very, very slippery. So watch out for your morning commute. And then for those of you in the Arrowhead region, your evening commute is going to be a little dangerous, a little slippery. So just keep that in mind. Kind of plan ahead for those of you up in now those regions, just because, man, it's looking like it's going to be a little dangerous on some of those roads throughout the day on Monday. All right, everybody, for Region Weather Live, I'm meteorologist Brad Warner, and everybody have a good day.